I first started pitching the personal brand service to clients, they were like, what is this?
Yeah.
TikTok now has over, I think it's like 52%. The audience is over 25. Millennials like us, we hang out on Instagram. But my eyes have really opened up to what's actually happening in that landscape. We've become the media. We used to have to like earn the media. Holy shit. 14.5 million views of her sitting at her desk making a freaking salad at work.
Oh, that's not the only way to build a personal brand. Some of the most powerful people in the world, you only will know their name when you're in certain circles and there's a closed network. Think big, reach, go, add value to as many people as you can, but don't forget the value and importance and power of also not acting small, because that sounds wrong, but thinking small as well. Like where are the corners and the connections that you can create just by reaching out to one person.
My next guest on next season is Carlii Lyon, and she's a former international publicist, so we're already going to have a lot in common there. Her past clients include some celebrities, and today Carlii is here because we recently connected over a book that she has written. We have a lot in common. We're going to geek out hard over personal branding, of course, but also Carlii found herself losing herself and her visibility through her extended maternity leave, and as we all know from my own story, that's something that I really struggled with as well. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Carlii Lyon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amanda. It's so great to meet you in person. I've been fangirling you for a while.
Vice versa. You first popped onto my radar. I think it was one of the Entourage events because, as you know, I sometimes assist with doing different brand pop-ups and things like that.
Yeah.
And there was one that I couldn't do because I was in the throes of postpartum. And I remember Jack reaching out to you and you going along and delivering to the members. And I know that they value you and really appreciate all the work that you do as well, and absolutely rave about you as well. So yeah, super excited to have you here today and hear about your sort of take on everything personal branding, but also the personal story, behind you. And I think it's a good place to start is to try and look at, who are you and what's your background and what's really shaped you to where you are today?
Well, based on your question, I will start from saying that I am a high school dropout. And I left school when I was 15. I was so hungry to work. And really at the time, that was just a way to fund my party going lifestyle. And it wasn't until one morning that I woke up and I was having a cigarette for breakfast. Believe it or not, they thought this isn't the life that I want to lead. And I decided to go back to school, finish my HSC. And while I was studying, I had a friend of mine suggest to me that I should look into an internship program at a health retreat in the Currumbin Valley in Queensland. And so I applied, I was accepted. And basically that meant I lived for 2 months at this exclusive health retreat. So you can imagine I went from, when I say I was a party girl, I really mean I was a party girl, to going into this wellness bubble where any vice you could imagine was a vice was not allowed. So no sugar, no dairy, no meat, no media, no mobiles, nothing. Lived there for 2 months. Came out an aspiring wellness guru and someone that nobody wanted to sit next to at a dinner party because I was like, don't eat that, don't do that. And that was ultimately how I ended up getting into PR because I wanted to spread the story of wellness and personal development because I had experienced myself how life-changing it can be to learn these ways of being, these ways of thinking. And so that started me on the path of PR, which led me to have my own PR consultancy for many years. And yeah, really it's what's led me to where I am today.
And I could have rattled off a list of the names that I have on my phone here of all of the clients that you've worked with, but let's hear it from you. Who are some of the notable clients that some of the audience may know that you've worked with?
So I always say my claim to fame is that I was Miranda Kerr's long-term international personal publicist for many years. How that came about was I was already in my PR consultancy representing a whole host of incredible speakers and experts in that personal development space. For example, one of my clients was Dr. John DeMartini, who was in The Secret. And so I was on Miranda's radar, if you like, not only because of that, she was also dating my brother at the time, who was a fellow model. But she knew I was in PR and she was starting to work with Victoria's Secret. And I actually said to her, you know, this is really big news. Because I wasn't in that fashion, beauty, celebrity space. Not at all. Wasn't really interested in it. But I said to her, this is massive news. We have to do some sort of PR around this. You know what? Don't worry. I'll do you a favor. I'll just do your PR for a few months, you know. And then, of course, we all know how that story ended. She ended up, it became the Miranda Kerr juggernaut, and I ended up being able to go on that journey, and what an amazing experience that was. But really, the intersection between my love of wellness, and of course, we all know Miranda is the face of organic beauty and wellness. So that was what kept us together so long.
I love that you say that fashion wasn't your thing. Because like for me, I think politics was never my thing either, but it ended up being like such a good opportunity. I think it's a good thing to be open to, you know, like challenging yourself in areas or industries or even niches that wouldn't normally be on your, you know, list of, because it really stretches you and challenges you. And sometimes it can give you like a totally different perspective and a unique experience that you otherwise would never have if you weren't open to it. So I love that. Is the work with Miranda walk you to being in New York for a couple of years as well?
Yeah, it was the reason why I moved over. And I mean, I was in my mid-20s. So where else would you want to be in your mid-20s representing one of the top supermodels in the world? It was such an amazing time. And, you know, she still remains to be one of the most exceptionally hardworking, down-to-earth, incredible women that I know, and of course had the privilege to work with and still am friends with. And it was just, it was an amazing time in my life.
What was one of the biggest highlights of being in New York?
I mean, there's so many highlights, and you know America, and certainly those hot spots. You just never know who you're going to bump into, who you're going to meet. And that was really the thing. You would meet some of the most amazing people from all different walks of life, from all over the world. I can't really say there was one highlight. It was really the whole thing that was a highlight. Especially as someone from Australia, live in this beautiful small country, but we're small and it's like a small little country town. And then you go to New York. And actually the reason I decided to move over to New York wasn't actually just because of Miranda. It was because I was over there working. I was doing just a few weeks over there, and I was walking through Soho, and this guy was walking down the street in underwear and like an Indian American headgear, and nobody was looking at him. Like nobody was even turning their head. And I was like, I want to live in a city like this. Do you know what I mean? Like to me, that was so liberating.
Yeah, it's very true actually, because you mentioned before ties back to Currumbin, and I'm from the Gold Coast. I lived in Palm Beach, which is very close to Currumbin, and I know the health retreat that you're talking about. But I used to find that experience coming down to Sydney for work to meet with clients. Like I used to love walking around the city because again, I feel like no one really looks at each other. Like everyone's just kind of doing their own thing, and there's this anonymity. There's this like you could be anyone or nothing, really, sort of thing. And it can feel very, very liberating as well. So we're in mid-20s.
Yeah.
We've got a dream career. And then what happens following that? Because if I think about it, it's like kind of a similar timeline to me. You know, I'm mid-20s, I'm working in politics. And then it's a few years after that I launch my first business.
Yeah.
Tell me about when you...
So I did that up until I was 32. So that was when I decided, well, I had already given birth to my first child. So I have two beautiful boys. And I continued to work after I gave birth to Francesco. But then when I fell pregnant with number two, I ultimately knew I had to make a decision. Just knowing for me, my vision of being a mom, you know, being with my kids, what I wanted to focus on, I made the decision to put my career to the side. So I let all my clients know. And, you know, I think about it now, and there were definitely people in my life that were like, are you sure you want to do this? You're in a really great position representing some really amazing people. Are you sure you want to give that all up? And it was actually my mentor that said, who's, you know, he's in his 70s now, and he's been my mentor for decades. He said, Carlii, when you get to the end of your life, you're not going to be thinking, oh, I wish I had have got my client on one more magazine cover. You are going to be thinking, I wish I had spent more time with my kids. So I decided to put my career on hold altogether, clients, and be a full-time stay-at-home mum.
Yeah. What are the ages of your children? How close are they together?
So really close, 21 months apart.
Okay, yep. And how old were they at this point?
At that point, they would have been, well, Francesco would have been 13 or 14, 15 months. And yeah, Alessandro was a newborn. So tiny.
2 under 2. Super crazy. So 2 under 2, still running the business. Prior to that, so you had one though, and you would have been working through pregnancy and dealing with all that sort of thing. And you mentioned before people were saying to you, are you sure you really want this? Do you feel like you even knew what you wanted at that point?
I did. You know, to be really honest with you, Amanda, and this might sound strange coming from someone who on paper and in reality, I am a career person, whatever you want to call that. But I always knew, for me, at that point in my life, my priority was getting married and having children.
Yeah.
And I used to be embarrassed about admitting that. I thought that was made me less of a career person. But I really own that now. That was what I wanted. That was my priority. And I made that decision. And that worked for me and it worked for our family. And I don't regret that for a minute.
And so how long did you focus on just being mum at home?
So I say all of that, but at the same time, it got to about 3 years in.
Yeah.
It was still really hard because there was still part of me that was holding on to who I used to be.
Yeah.
And I had identified so much with my career and everything that represented. Not only that, but, and you may or may not have had a similar experience, but for me, because I put all of my career on hold, it felt like one day I was getting emails, calls, invites, you know, people were wanting to hear from me, reach out to me. The next day, crickets.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of people who I genuinely thought were friends, even though they were colleagues, but they were friends, just completely disappear. And I would email just wanting to stay in touch. I wouldn't hear back from them. That really hurt at the time.
Yeah.
Now I see it as a cosmic filter.
Yeah, definitely. I had a similar experience. I remember sitting down with Jack. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a birthday or something, because birthday's always the time when like you kind of hear from everyone. I don't know if it kind of that sort of tipped it off for me, but I remember saying to him, like, I feel invisible. For the first time ever, I feel invisible. Like I just don't hear from people. And that was compounded by the fact that obviously I'd relocated interstate, you know, new relationship. Yeah. But I really resonate with what you say about, you know, like the invitations stop rolling in. But also too, I mean, even if those invitations did come in, like you're at a place where you don't, and this is the thing, like I've always been such an extrovert. Like I've always loved going out. And I feel like I've become more of an introvert since I've become a mum, because really what actually energizes me the most and makes me feel, probably not even energized, what makes me feel the most centered and calm and peaceful is spending time with Jack and Ariella.
Yeah.
Like that's just where I want to be.
Yeah.
So for me to actually, and you know, like obviously we're very busy with the lifestyle that we sort of lead. So time is precious. And if I'm actually going to like, you know, take some of that time and put it somewhere, like it has to be something that, you know, I'm actually going to find beneficial and something that's going to actually energize me and fill me up.
Yeah.
So I'm very intentional about like who I socialize with, where I go. But at the same time, I feel like you have to be mindful that you might be getting in your own way of kind of pushing yourself to get out there. Like it can become very easy to kind of become a hermit almost because you do feel so comfortable. So a big lesson for me has been, you know, sometimes like, you know, for example, this week, just last week, I was invited to a conference, a dinner and a gala, like all in the same week at you know, at a time when we're like packing up house and we've got all these other, you know, things going on. And I could have easily used the excuse, I've got too much going on, I'm not going to go. But there has been a time for a while now where I haven't been, you know, filling up that social bucket. So I'm like, nah, just got to make it work, got to go do it. And I met probably a handful of incredible high value women at these events that I will now, you know, continue to stay in contact with as a result of like getting up, getting dressed and pushing myself out the door and like going in and showing up. But there was a time where I didn't have the courage to do that. And I mean, this is an interesting insect to say that because your book is called Courage to Be.
Yes.
And I think one of the things we go through in that initial identity crisis or the collapse of the former identity into motherhood, the hormones, everything else is we do lose our confidence a bit and we kind of second guess, like even going out and talking to people, it's like, what do I talk about? I don't feel like I've got anything interesting going
Yeah.
on. I'm not going to events anymore. I've got no incredible, amazing client case studies to talk about.
Yeah.
Like what I'm going to talk about, like how many nappies I changed today and how many,
Yeah.
you know, like milk bottles I cleaned out, or, you know, how hard it is to find good help, or I don't know, whatever it might be. Yeah. And for someone who loves like meeting people and going like really deep and having
Yeah.
like really constructive, like almost like problem solving conversations, which is what I experienced going to these events last week, because it was sitting down with other businesswomen who are mums and them saying, oh, I've got this problem, and just being able to like jump in and put on that sort of coaching hat and kind of, you know, like pro bono coaching hat, like helping to try and like come up with solutions and that sort of thing. That stuff lights me up. And I've said this, I think, before on my show, like I never went to any of the mothers groups either, because I thought like, what are the conversations going to be? Because I love the like stimulating growth, business. You know, like this whole show is about ambitious women who are trying to find a way to actually continue living life on their own terms. And it took a while to sort of figure it out. And I mean, is that similar for you? Do you resonate with a lot of what I've just said?
Absolutely. And you know what is a big lesson I learned, because I was exactly the same. I didn't go to any of the mothers groups. I really almost intentionally just made a point of not engaging, even at the school when they eventually went to primary school. I was like, oh, I'm not going to be one of those mums. And then do you know what was so funny? When I opened up and I was like, you know what? Stop being so judgmental, Carlii. Just open up. And I ended up discovering that the very women that I thought were just mumsy, wanted to talk about their kids, ended up being these powerhouse corporate women, not only corporate business women. And I had made an assumption that they were going to be those mums. And so I think that there is something in that as well. It's probably a reflection or a bit of a hangover of thinking it's either or.
Yes.
Where it's you're either a mummy mum or a working mum. And, you know, we don't really want to talk about kids and whatever. But I think if you open up, you'll realize, and I realized anyway, actually, I was missing out because I made that assumption. Assumption.
I'm here with you on that one. I think, I'm definitely guilty of doing the same thing. And I think that's obviously one of the main reasons why I, developed this platform. I wanted to bring people like yourself on here because I was having conversations like you and I are having right now, you know, in person, and realizing there are other women who think and feel the same. But I think it's like, well, how do we find them? Because, you know, traditionally, yes, the mothers groups won't have that. But it's interesting to hear you say, like, still be open to it. It's a exploration process. But I think you need to be mindful of, like, you have to really give yourself a kick in the backside to really force and push yourself to go, because it is very, very easy, as I said before, to kind of, like you say, assume, but then also just get too comfortable.
Yeah. And so there's that part around don't make those assumptions, you know, going to a weekend away with all the mums from the high school that my kids go to.
Yeah.
It ends up being an amazing weekend. I meet some of the most incredibly accomplished women. And because I really made a point as soon as the kids started in high school to really just lean in and look for community and connection in all areas. Some of my best business opportunities come through being on the soccer sidelines. Do you know what I mean? And I think there is just opening up when it comes to that networking connection. And this relates to women who aren't working right now or are thinking of going or are working, just being open to meeting people in all places at all times, I think is a mindset shift. In terms of that inertia piece of you have your children or baby, your priorities shift. So you do become naturally more selective with your time and energy, which I think is wonderful. Like if only we had that wisdom before having kids and applied that to our lives. And then, so the priority factor is one thing, and getting clearer on who you want to be around is amazing. That piece around needing to get through the inertia of I've been at home, I haven't been putting myself out there, it feels scary. I don't know about you, but for me, it really was that cliche. It's like getting back on a bike.
Yeah.
And then you get back on the bike and you go, oh, wait on a second, this is easy.
Yeah.
And you just have to get back on the bike.
Yeah, it's repetitions, as with everything. We say it all the time.
Exactly.
In terms of building muscle. But yeah, I think the encouragement to get on the bike is
Yeah.
it's hard sometimes for that to come within. It's
Yeah.
really good to have partners who will mirror you and, you know, give you that encouragement, or friends as well. So was that something that you were able to sort of do on your own, or was there certain people in your life at the time that were helping you?
You know, this whole journey, so how I actually got to writing the book, how this all started, Courage to Be. I was sitting on the couch with my husband watching TV, which I never do. I'm not a TV watcher. And he leaned over to me and he put his hand on my leg and he was like, honey, you haven't washed your hair in over a week. You've been wearing the same clothes and I can tell something's not right.
Yeah.
And it was him. So talking about having a partner who's able to put up a mirror.
Yeah.
I mean, not literally, but actually put up a mirror and just say, hey, like you're letting yourself down right now. Not in the sense, he wasn't saying it.
Yeah, not like you're letting yourself go put some makeup on and get dressed up. Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
He knew that I wasn't being myself and was, you know, my spark wasn't there. So having a partner who's brave enough to call you out on that. So actually the next morning I washed my hair and I was like, I've just got to do something. Like I've got to do something constructive. So talking about that, where did it come from? And were there people around you that, you know, pushed you? It actually, funnily enough, was I went on to I started Googling. I don't even know what I was looking for. Came across a clip from Gary Vaynerchuk. I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
In this particular video, he was just saying, you know, stop whinging and just get the fuck on with it. I don't know why, but in that very moment, I felt like he was talking directly to me. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to stop internally. I'm just going to get on with it. And this was at the point where I had decided I wanted to go back to work, but I was terrified. Inertia had absolutely set in, lost all of that identity, definitely wasn't riding the bike. And I just posted a introduction on Business Women's networking group in Facebook. Just, hi, this is my, you know, this is who I am. This is what I've done. And I just want to help women in business. I had no clear or compelling pitch. It was like nothing. It wasn't even a picture of me.
Yeah.
So I broke all personal branding rules. But it was a step. And from that one post, I was inundated with women reaching out saying, can you help me with my personal branding? Which from that, coaching people one-on-one led to me working with corporates.
Wow.
So it was that one video that I saw online that was and I'm sure there were other things, but yeah, that was
There was probably about 10 other things before that you unconsciously are not picking up on.
Exactly.
And then that, boom, hit you. So that was about 3 years in?
It was about 3 years in. So it was a time when the kids could go to preschool.
Yeah.
And I knew, I wanted to do something. I also knew I couldn't go back to what I was doing. So there was not okay, I'll just go back to that in the same capacity.
Yeah. I think this is a really powerful lesson for anyone listening, because I've been there too. It's knowing that you can't go back to what you did before, but then being like, well, what do I do then?
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, you can really do anything, but you also have to now consider that, well, what I do has to obviously fit in with the fact that I am a mum, which means at times I will not be able to prioritize clients and work, and I need to be flexible. And then also, well, if I can design anything from scratch, I want to make sure it's something that actually, you know, lights me up and something I'm actually like interested in doing and actually adds value. Because like, why would you add an extra responsibility and put an extra hat on as a woman unless it's something you actually needed to do or wanted to do?
100%.
Yeah.
And you know, I laugh at it now. I had not even put two and two together in the sense of I wasn't even using the vernacular. You know, in the capacity of publicist. And I think also the term maybe wasn't as popular, but I hadn't even said anything about personal branding. It was the fact that they said
it to you.
It to me that then opened my thinking. My first form of marketing, because I'd never thought about coaching, like what did that even mean? I didn't even know what that would look like. My first form of marketing was a Word document, and it just wrote, you know, it just outlined what I thought I could do for them. And then a $300 Squarespace site, no picture of me on it. And that was what launched my business. I actually didn't know what I was doing the first time I went into a coaching session. The lady said to me, so obviously you have a process and we'll go through that. And I was like, absolutely. There was no process. It was just, I'm just going to wing it.
We, particularly as women, and I think even like women like us, like we think we're not ready. Like this is the thing, guys, just Guys do that all the time, but women are always like, no, it's like I always use the example of like the job advert that lists 10 selection criteria, and a woman will literally go through 1 to 10, and if she doesn't tick off all of those, she won't apply. Whereas a guy will go, oh, I've got 2 out of 10. Let me out. I'm going to apply for this job. So like, and you know, I talk to Jack about this a lot too, because he can see like the cogs in my brain when I think of doing anything. Like I start building out this giant thing and wanting it to be perfect and like all the levels until launch. And you know, he'll be like, but why don't you just launch it? Like, why do you need to build all, like launch it first, then you know, figure it out as you go. And I mean, it's like that's what people need to hear sometimes.
Totally. And honestly, now when I'm working with clients, I will often say to them, like, whatever you have, wherever you are right now, put it out into the market, because more than likely the market will help you perfect it. And you might be thinking, oh, I'm going to offer XYZ and I'm going to be saying XYZ. And the market will say, no, actually, we want ABC.
Yeah.
So focus on ABC. And so if you go with that mentality, you're going to save a lot of time, and you'll probably end up creating something that's a lot more powerful.
Yeah. It's interesting your foray into personal branding is because someone mentioned it to you.
Yes.
For me, it was, I went on this all women's retreat in Bali. It's actually funny. Her book's called Simply Be.
Oh, really?
And she was a personal branding specialist in the States who I'd followed online for a long time.
Yeah.
I loved her. I just like, I really resonated with her, like just sister from another mister type thing, like just my kind of person. So I ended up going to a retreat that she was a facilitator at. And this is the first time I actually had sat down and heard all about the world of personal branding. At the time I was doing just traditional PR, but I had my own agency, but I was doing more of the traditional stuff, and I wasn't really pitching the personal branding to anyone. But I literally left that retreat feeling so inspired by this concept of personal branding. And for me, what happened was I had like a few, you know, I guess like alarms go off in my head around that's what I was doing for politicians. So I was PR comms, but I was essentially helping grow their personal brand or their personal profile to ensure that they got voted in elections. Everything I was doing with that social media management, the website, writing the speeches, you know, like managing all of that sort of stuff, right? And then when I'm meeting business owners out on the campaign trail, I'm seeing so much opportunity there for them to also embrace this in terms of their storytelling and how they can actually show up as the founders of their businesses and be the spokespeople for their businesses. So this is like in 2018. When I first started pitching the personal brand service to clients, they were like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like people, it wasn't mainstream. Like people were a little bit like, but you know, they could see how passionate I was about it. So I was an amazing salesperson at selling this personal brand package, which I created from scratch. And, you know, I perfected this thing over years and years to the point where my strategies would be like 40-page documents, like drilling down into the absolute psyche of who they are and their thoughts. And we do SWOT analysis, looking at their individual strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, the talking points that they could have, you know, like everything that needed to build like an architecture of this personal brand, right?
Yeah.
Which would later go away on retainer and deliver on a monthly basis to help push out through their social media channels, to help them nominate for business awards, to help them get in the press, and to help them with stakeholder management or even government lobbying if needed. So it was like this huge thing.
It was me.
Yeah, it was wildly successful. You know, I scaled my company to 5 full-time employees prior to meeting Jack doing this work. So that's, you know, that's how I ended up in the personal branding thing. And the reason I'm telling this backstory now is because next week I'm actually delivering to the Entourage. I'm doing a session on the branding playbook for 2025 and beyond.
Love it.
Because I have been out of the space for a couple of years, right? Doing the mum thing. And I've recently re-immersed back into like, well, what's actually happening now with personal brand? And a few things have kicked me off down the rabbit hole of that. And the first thing is a former colleague of mine actually sent me an ad for PayPal. They're currently looking for a personal brand employee with 15 years experience, which like you'll be lucky to find that, right? Because I entered at 2018. I'm not sure when you did, but there's not too many people who've actually specialized in this field for even 15 years.
No.
$250,000 a year just to manage. And the whole of X was just going wild with this, going like, I cannot believe that paying to promote an individual's personal brand is something that is, you know, the company is going to be paying for. And how does that work if that person moves on because you're building up their brand and not the company's, and like all this stuff, right? There's a whole conversation on X about that if you search the PayPal personal brand story. But that got me looking into also the job description and all the things that were required. And it got me thinking about like, how has the landscape really changed? And the biggest thing is, I think for both of us being PR, you know, practitioners, a lot of the traditional media stuff we used to do is now out in favor of of content, and you have to be on video, and you have to be
Yeah.
building personal brands, and you're doing that through social media. So we've become the media. We used to have to like earn the media, like
Totally.
we've become the media. And so that brings with it a whole level of new challenges for people wanting to do that, because they have to get comfortable being on camera, which is
Yep.
probably one of the best personal development things that you can do, is getting confident enough to speak on camera. And you're going to suck at first, but you're going to get better. I cringed so hard at some of my old stuff. Like, I've got it in the archives. I'm going to share it just to show people how terrible I was many years ago. But yeah, in doing all of this research, one of the things that I also found is that TikTok now has over, I think it's like 52%
Yeah.
of the audience is over 25. So I'm thinking millennials like us, we hang out on Instagram, right? Because it's only the Gen Zs on TikTok and it's all dancing and like whatever, and like no one's being serious over there. But my eyes have really opened up to what's actually happening in that landscape. I heard of a woman the other day who built up a following on TikTok, which when her company was going through the trenches and her and her husband couldn't draw a wage to support their family, she monetized that audience and was able to land some consulting gigs and some different, you know,
amazing.
speaking opportunities, and that helped. It was like an investment, right? It was
Yeah.
this plan B investment
Yeah.
that saved them during that tough season in business. So that gave a big tip for me.
incredible.
The other thing was, there's a lawyer that spoke at the dinner I was at on the weekend who has about 1.2 million followers. Now, albeit she's got some pretty good stories to tell, because she talks a lot about family law and disputes and that sort of thing. So it's like all relationship stuff, which I think if anyone opens their, you know, Instagram feed right now, it's probably like every third post will be something relationship centric, because we're all in relationships. So we're all hungry to learn about that. But what I found really interesting with her is she literally, her stuff is so lo-fi. So her whole approach to building her personal brand on TikTok, which is the only platform she has, is just post something once a day. But she literally just puts the phone on a tripod, no filter, nothing, press start, and will sit there at her desk and make a salad and just talk about she's in her office and this is what she does for work and these are the interesting clients she has and this is avocado and I'm going to put this in. It goes to 10 minutes long. I haven't watched the whole thing, but I started watching it in prepreration because I'm going to share this next week, obviously, with our members. And looking at it, I'm like, holy shit. 14.5 million views of her sitting at her desk making a freaking salad at work. And that's all her content is. I'm doing the grocery shopping. I'm making a
Really?
platter. Like every now and then
Wow.
talking about the legal stuff, but the impact that had on her business. And she's also a mum with twins and has overcome cancer, like an incredible woman. But yeah, what that taught me is that it doesn't need to be as complicated as we let out. You know, there's this whole, let's stop for a moment here because I'm getting a bit overwhelmed even thinking about it and I don't want to overwhelm our audience, but you know, you look at big thought leaders out there today. You mentioned Gary Vee before, you've got the Hormozis, you've got these big names. They have media teams that they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on to basically ensure that they're showing up on all of their platforms, and editors, filmers, graphic designers, you name it. So social media managers, the whole lot. That can be a little bit too far out. Well, for most people, is like, we can't do that, right?
Yep.
So, and Instagram is such a aesthetic platform that requires like, you know, the editing and the design and to really intentionally go in there with everything. But this TikTok opportunity is something that anyone can literally get their phone out and just start documenting their life and just see what happens.
It's really crazy. I would also add to that. I come from, and I don't know if this is something that you resonate with or agree with, but I think it's also really important for people to understand, because there may be some people listening, maybe not, but that really don't want to go on social media at all.
Yeah.
And I do believe there are, and for some people it's a very valid decision, that's not the only way to build a personal brand. Some of the most powerful people in the world, no one will ever know their name. You only will know their name when you're in certain circles and there's a closed network. So for those who are listening who are wanting to build a powerful personal brand, but they don't want the social media aspect of it, because I always think there's personal branding and then social media strategy is one part to that. So it's a big part in the way that we're connecting with people today. It's a big part of most people's personal brand strategy. What I really want to represent out in the world is, and what I want to advocate for is, there is power in having a personal brand mindset, but that doesn't mean that automatically you want to be an influencer on social media. But having the mindset of, I've got something to say, I'm worth listening to, I want to show up and be seen. for some people, just having that mindset means going into a meeting and speaking up. And that is going to be amazing for them and what they are wanting to achieve in life. I think that the rabbit hole of social media and all of the possibilities in terms of what that exposure can bring to you, say visibility leads to possibility.
Yeah.
And it's so exciting. And especially for someone like you and I who were in that space where it was all about earned media.
Yeah.
And now you can fully take control of where you want to be seen, who you want to be seen by. And if you put in the time and the effort to build the audience, I mean, when you were saying, you know, having a video on while you're making a salad, that makes me feel so exhausted just thinking about it. Like, I just know that there wouldn't be an outcome that would be worth it for me to do that, because I also think it's really important, and this is maybe a side note, a big thing that I'm working on or marinating in at the moment is also have to enjoy the process. Now, putting yourself out there is always probably going to be uncomfortable. There's that fine line between enjoying the process and having to push yourself. But like I said, I could think of nothing worse than showing up on social media every day.
Yeah.
I just couldn't do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I think you and Jack are amazing at it. Honestly, I do. And I love what you guys do. And I think that, and I've seen his personal brand go from, like, you can see where Amanda came into his life. And there was like this juggernaut of growth in his personal branding and in social media. And I can tell that you're having an amazing influence on him, by the way. You've built his brand.
I can't take all the credit for that. Okay. No, I can't. He's got an amazing team that helps him with that as well. I think I help provide the colour, and I've made Jack more multidimensional by
100%.
Having a wifey and a kid,
yeah,
and
100%.
Dragging along with all the fun things that I want to do and all the holidays we do together. So I think there's definitely I've had an impact on that, but I would hate to take the full credit for that because there's definitely a team behind that as well, and different people who've been instrumental over the years. But yeah, I'm hearing what you're saying, and I think the whole thing is, yes, first and foremost, is it something that you actually want to do?
Yes.
The second thing is, like, what is the outcome you're trying to actually achieve from this? And so the example that I used earlier from Salad Lady is that she's very happy with her outcome.
Yeah.
Because what happened was she used to do, this is an interesting thing. So we talk about like doing the grassroots campaign stuff, right? Like, what's the alternative to social media? So for her, the alternative was, prior to COVID, she would go to an RSL and she would hold free seminars on family law for people. That's how she found her clients. Yeah. So when COVID came through, she moved to TikTok. As a result of that, she now services national clients because she's not just located at her RSL or her local, area. She's got international reach even. So she services nationally and has added an additional 8 employees, like 8 lawyers to her team, is earning so much money that every year, because she's a cancer survivor as well, she spends $20,000 a year on a birthday and goes on a big extravaganza birthday shopping spree and takes everyone like with her on the journey on her social media, and that gets really good engagement. Book deals, like all these and for her, she's just like, bring it all in. Like, it's just, I think for anyone who's had a second chance at life, for her, she wants this outcome, right? Yeah. She wants just, I'm open to any opportunity, bring it, live it, like I'm just on fire.
Love it, yeah.
So it works really well for her. But yeah, like you don't just do it for the sake of doing it, and you certainly don't do it if it doesn't feel congruent with who you are and your values. There are so many people who value privacy, for example.
Yeah. And I think that they're more and more, and this is why a lot of what I talk about and put out there, I'm definitely more of an introverted person. I really, like, privacy is really important to me. So I'm probably one of those people that's out in the world talking about personal branding, but in maybe I'll resonate with a different type of client because of that mix where I'm all about putting yourself out there, but I really, really am all about privacy as well. And I think you can have both. And I would also say that I do think, and maybe this is something I need to, being really honest, adjust to with the market. There's always that case of you bring with you your experience and you bring with you your biases.
Yeah.
And I think the market does love that full transparency, full access. But I'm also wondering if we will get to a point where we discover, because if you think about it, social media is a new toy. I'm wondering if we're going to get to a point where we discover actually that probably wasn't such a good idea to give so much of yourself?
Absolutely. They're saying that like social media is the equivalent of, I guess, like cigarettes and
Really?
like everyone did it and they thought it was harmless and there was no issue, and then 50 years later everyone's got cancer and there's warnings on cigarette packs. Like I saw a thing about that this week.
Really?
Similar thing is mobile phones.
Yeah.
Obviously there's not enough data yet to be conclusive around tumours and radio frequency and all that kind of thing as well. And social media is kind of the next big thing that hasn't been around long enough to test that long term.
There's a part of me that, again, I'm all about show up, share, add value. I'm all about that. But I'm also all about, and I suppose this comes back to, you would get this, being, when you think of when you played as a PR, as a publicist to the politicians, for my clients, everything was intentional. What they wore, what rooms they were in, who they were with, what they said, how they said it. There wasn't one bit that was just let loose and do whatever you want. Everything was intentional.
Yeah.
And so then all of a sudden you give the ability for people to run their own PR, basically.
Yeah.
Where maybe they don't have that mindset of being intentional, really thinking through what they're putting out there and why. And I sometimes worry about that, to be honest, because I think so much of what you put out there, the minute you put it out there, that's not yours anymore. That is public property. And they can do with it whatever they want. And you can't say anything.
I think there's definitely pros and cons with it.
Yeah.
Because in my head, as you were saying, being really intentional and using the politicians, for example, that stuff doesn't really connect or resonate with people because it is too scripted and people, people can smell
see
a rat.
through it.
They can see through it. So when
it.
people are wildly open, unprepared, unintentional, sometimes that actually helps people connect. So in saying that, like you still need to have your wits about you in terms of, how you're perceived, and if you're showing up the way that you want to and you're not putting anything out there that could ultimately destroy your reputation, because the whole thing with anything PR is reputation management. You can spend years building something great and one mistake can tear it all down. But I think there's for and against still for that. But I think the other thing that I've just thought of too is when we talk about the focus that we have on building social media, we have to remember that we're actually building on other people's real estate. So many people are not collecting email lists. And as you mentioned, you don't have to be on a social media to build a personal brand. So I think it'd be really useful right now for you to list off what are some of the things people should actually be including in this whole entire strategy. So let's just say one day, and TikTok has been taken down in Australia before already. There have been, if these platforms disappear, so does everyone with them. So what are some other ways to ensure visibility if that were to happen?
Right now, I'm all about getting in front of people and creating opportunity to connect like this.
In real life.
In real life.
Which people are really not doing enough of anymore.
And that's the thing. I really think that when you connect with a person in real life, like one interaction, I don't know what the numbers would be, but I would honestly say if there was like a waiting, one interaction with a person in person, what would you say? I mean, it would be like 50 maybe interactions with them online. And yes, I think there's massive value in meeting a person in person and then staying in touch online. But just really right now, I'm all about creating that energetic connection with people in real life. Now, can you do that internationally? And
I've had some good experience with that. I mean, the other way around though. So like I network with a lot of people in the US through my Instagram. I've actually just met like an incredible powerhouse female publisher, brand expert in the US who is actually having Jack and I speak at one of her events in Wisconsin next year. Like she was literally stalking me for ages and she reached out and said, oh my God, we are so in love with you and everything that you're doing. Like we want you to come and speak at this event. And then when I found out that they were, they had some couples and stuff speaking as well. Of course, my PR had, have you heard about my husband, Jack Delosa? Like it's a missed opportunity if you're not to have him on stage too. So we're going to be presenting together at that event next year. But that came off the back of me being discovered on Instagram and us like just conversing and then like having those little quirks and sort of same similarities, sending each other voice notes. Like I've built some really awesome relationships with people on social first and then gone to meet them in real life. Which is like awesome
Yeah.
to do that. But then the same as what you said before, like those women I met last week, like we've already, you know, been, let's keep in touch. So great to meet you, you know, connections for life. But then comes the maintenance of those connections.
Yes. And the maintenance is important,
yeah,
right?
being intentional about that, because that, I think when we were talking earlier about, you know, being in the throes of, I guess, the matrescence and postpartum and new mums, we're exhausted. The last thing we think about is maintaining anything, because we're just trying to maintain keeping a child alive. So that's another thing that, like, getting back on the bike. It's like getting back on the bike of making sure that you're keeping in connection with people. I know for me, I'll put my hand up and say I really sucked at that. Like I let the ball drop on maintaining my connections throughout that period. But I'm at a point now where I'm really like fired up and excited. I mean, I think this for me really started that process again. Meeting people on podcasts for me is like one of my favorite things ever, because we sit here for an hour, right? And we go so deep. Like it would take us 6 months of like catching up and doing coffees to get to the level that we have in this one conversation. So even for on the topic of personal branding, one of those things I would recommend, and I always do, is like if you've got the courage to do it, go jump on some podcasts, go be a guest to start with. You know, potentially one day you might want to start your own show. And again, you'll own that real estate.
100%. I think it's the best way to network.
Yeah.
I really do. I totally agree with you. And it comes back to, I always think when you're building your network and creating connections, my priority when I'm wanting to really connect with someone is, how can I add value to this person? Like, can I make an introduction? Can I send them something that they need?
Can I bring them a book?
Can I bring them a book? Exactly. Can I have them on my podcast? Which I'm definitely not as organized as you. Like, I'll have one episode every 6 months. So there's no regularity to it. But just creating opportunities where you can add value. Yeah. You know, maybe share something that they've posted on social media. I think coming at it from that perspective, it will definitely show that or give more of an incentive to have that courage to set these
that
things
just reminded me, I met one of my best friends in life and business we were going to this Gold Coast Girls in Business networking event many years ago when we both started our businesses, like getting out there, going to networking events. And I saw her in the Facebook group as attending, and she just caught my eye, and I like Googled her, and I found out that she'd had this like incredible, for so young, she'd been in China and Amazon and had written books and like done all this really cool stuff. And she was so young. I was like, far out, this chick's a weapon. Like I have to meet her. So I reached out to her and I'm like, hey, before the event, do you want to grab coffee across the road before we go in? And I sat down with her, and we were the complete opposite. You know, I'm the super extrovert and she was like so introverted. And we had this discussion about, because she just started freelancing and she was only earning $400 a week for this incredible work. She was making these companies tens of thousands of dollars doing email marketing and e-com. And I had the chat with her about, you need to raise your prices. And she'll never forget that. You know, I remember the first, we were always along side by side in our businesses, always working together. And I remember the first night that she messaged me to say, I've just had my first 100K month. She's like, and I always think back to that conversation you had with me about seeing my worth and my value. And so like, that's the kind of stuff that's what I've been missing. Yeah. That's what I've been missing. Yeah.
Well, you're definitely doing it in spades now. So it's like a revenge adding value.
Well, that's so me. It's like either nothing at all or everything at once. It's like, it's either fully intense in this direction. It's like, I don't do that middle ground very well at all.
But that's what makes you successful. I find a lot of the successful people that I've met and know they have that. It's just all or nothing. There's, you know, burn all the boats, just go for it, throw everything at it. And I think there's something really magical in that.
We should throw out a challenge to anyone listening to jump into perhaps a Facebook group, because we've both had good experience in doing that. Either introduce yourself and talk about the value that you want to add, as in your case, or seek someone out that you'd like to meet and take for coffee. And I think, it'd be awesome. I'd love to hear from anyone who does this challenge, for them to reach back out to us and tell us how you're going with that. But I think we get so lost in the trying to reach the masses through the social media that I think what's so poignant and beautiful about what you've brought here today is like, let's not forget those meaningful one-on-one connections where we can add value.
Yes. And I talk about it in the book. There's an article that a gentleman by the name of Kevin Kelly wrote. And it's called, he was one of the founding executive editors of Wired. And he wrote an article called 1,000 True Fans. And ironically, it went viral. But he was basically saying, you don't need millions of followers to create business, you know, and especially to be successful in a creative endeavor, you probably only need 1,000 true fans. And I think that goes back to what you just said. It's great to think big. I'm all about thinking big. And when it comes to personal branding, great, think big, reach, go, add value to as many people as you can. But don't forget the value and importance and power of also not acting small, because that sounds wrong, but thinking small as well. Like, where are the corners and the connections that you can create just by reaching out to one person?
Yeah. Love that. I'm going to ask one book question before I move on to my 3 closing questions for the episode. What's your favourite chapter in this book?
My favourite chapter is Make Space for Grace. And it is the story that I tell in that chapter is actually how I came to enter the world of PR. And in a nutshell, how it happened was I went to see a seminar. I saw Dr. John Demartini speak. I got his book there and then. He signed it at the event. And I walked out and I was like, I have to work for Dr. Demartini. I have to work for him. That was my aim in life at that point. And so as I was walking out, I looked down and I saw the publisher's logo on the book. So I reached out to Hay House Australia, literally posted my resume, which is what you did back then, and waited, didn't hear from them. Months went past, still didn't hear from them. Eventually, the managing director called me and he said, I'd like you to come in and meet me. And at the time, I wasn't really questioning, why is the managing director calling me, this young 21-year-old, no experience person? Anyway, didn't think about it much, went in. How it all came to be was, and he told me this there and then, he was cleaning his desk and he was about to go on tour with another high-profile author. And he picked up my resume, and just as he was about to throw it in the recycling, on the radio, which was playing in the background, the announcer said, "And here comes Carlii." And he was like, oh my God, this, he took it as a sign. And so that was why he called me. And he was the one who ended up saying, I think you should go into PR. He then became a lifelong mentor. He eventually introduced me to Dr. Demartini, who became one of my first clients. But the point of the chapter is what I live and breathe. Making space for grace is all about realizing that you don't have to know how things are going to happen. You don't have to know exactly how things are going to fall into place. You just have to make space for grace. You have to take those small steps, put yourself out there, have the courage to do that, and then be open to those magical serendipitous moments that come about to help you get to where you want to go. And I think when you lean into that, there's something so beautiful and magical about that. And yeah, that's my favorite chapter.
Love that. If anyone is interested in grabbing a copy of the book, they can get it from carliilyon.com. That'll have all the links there in order to get it.
Thank
now
you.
for my 3 questions to wrap. Finish this sentence. So this season of my life feels like
New beginnings.
Ooh, love that. One thing I've stopped apologizing for is
Owning my truth and living it.
love that. And I want women to know
That the world is waiting for them to have the courage to be whoever they want to be.
love it. Brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank
This has been such a
you.
fun chat. I think people will hear how fast and how quickly I talk through this one and be
I
like,
love
oh my
it.
God, Amanda's in her passion zone right now. She's found someone to geek out with. So
I love it.
yeah. And yeah, really hope that we inspire people to go out and make some real connections.
No, thank you so much for having me. And you are so inspiring. So
Oh.
I'm so glad we got to do this.
Thanks, Carlii.
Thank you.